The phone rang at exactly 10:17 on a Tuesday morning, and everything I believed about my family shattered before I even answered it. A school administrator's trembling voice told me my 15-year-old son had just been handcuffed by police in front of hundreds of classmates after an anonymous report accused him of bringing stolen property onto campus. Students were recording. Teachers were crying. Parents were already posting about it online. I raced to the school expecting some terrible misunderstanding. Instead, I found my own sister standing outside the principal's office, watching. She didn't look shocked. She looked satisfied. For 3 days my son lived through questioning, humiliation, and public judgment while our family name was dragged through the mud. Friends disappeared. Neighbors whispered. Even relatives refused to answer my calls. Then the investigation ended. Every accusation collapsed. The evidence proved my son had done absolutely nothing wrong. But what investigators uncovered next changed everything. The false report wasn't a mistake. It wasn't anonymous. It led directly back to someone I had trusted my entire life. My sister thought clearing my son's name would be the end of the story. She had no idea it was only the beginning. Because after those 3 days, I stopped protecting her. My name is Emily Carter, I'm 31 years old, and until that Tuesday morning, I believed the worst thing a parent could experience was getting a call that their child had been hurt. I was wrong. At 10:17 a.m., my phone rang while I was finishing paperwork at my insurance office. "Mrs. Carter," a nervous voice asked. "This is Lincoln High School. You need to come immediately. The police are here." My stomach tightened. "Is my son okay?" I'm sorry. Please come as quickly as you can." The call ended before I could ask another question. I drove faster than I ever had in my life, praying it was all some misunderstanding. When I reached the school parking lot, flashing police lights reflected off the building's front windows. Students were gathered outside, many holding their phones up, recording. Then I saw him. My 15-year-old son, Ethan, was being escorted across the courtyard in handcuffs. His face was pale. His eyes searched desperately through the crowd until they found mine. "Mom," he shouted. "I didn't do anything. I swear." I ran toward him, but an officer stepped in front of me. "Please, let us do our job." "What is he accused of?" I demanded. "We can't discuss an active investigation here." I looked at Ethan again. Tears filled his eyes, but he stood straight, repeating the same words. "I didn't do it." That's when I noticed someone standing beside the principal's office doors. My younger sister, Olivia. She wasn't crying. She wasn't confused. She wasn't asking questions like everyone else. She simply stood there with her arms folded, watching my son being led away. For just a second, our eyes met. Instead of concern, I thought I saw satisfaction. The principal quietly informed me that Ethan's backpack, phone, and school laptop had all been taken as evidence after someone reported he possessed stolen property on campus. As the police car pulled away with my son inside, surrounded by classmates recording every second, I realized our nightmare wasn't beginning at the station. It had already begun the moment someone decided to destroy his name. The ride home without Ethan was one of the longest drives of my life. His empty seat in the back looked like a constant reminder that something had gone terribly wrong. That afternoon, detectives interviewed him while I waited outside the room, listening to every second of silence between questions. Ethan never changed his story. "I didn't steal anything. I've never even seen what they're talking about. I don't know why this is happening." By evening, the story had already spread across town. Parents shared rumors in neighborhood Facebook groups. Students uploaded videos of Ethan being handcuffed, adding captions that made him look guilty before anyone knew the facts. Some of our neighbors stopped waving. Relatives who usually called every week suddenly became impossible to reach. Even my cousin texted, "Emily, if there's something we should know, just tell us." That message hurt more than I expected. For 3 days, Ethan barely spoke. He stayed in his room, staring at the ceiling whenever I brought him food. "I don't want to go back to school," he whispered once. "Everyone thinks I'm a criminal." I sat beside him and held his hand. "You are not what people are saying. The truth doesn't disappear just because lies spread faster." Meanwhile, detectives worked through every piece of evidence. They reviewed hallway security cameras minute by minute. They examined Ethan's school laptop, phone records, classroom schedules, and witness statements. One by one, the accusations began falling apart. The timeline didn't match. The supposed stolen property had never been connected to Ethan. Several students confirmed he wasn't even near the location where the report claimed the incident happened. On the afternoon of the third day, Detective Mason called. "Mrs. Carter," he said calmly, "your son has been completely cleared. He did nothing wrong." The weight on my chest finally lifted. Then his voice turned serious. "We also know who filed the false report." I closed my eyes. "Who?" There was a brief pause before he answered. "I'm afraid, it's someone in your own family." I couldn't speak. My fingers tightened around the phone until they hurt. "What did you just say?" I asked. Detective Mason sighed before answering. "The report that started this investigation came from your sister, Olivia." For several seconds, all I heard was my own heartbeat. "There has to be some mistake." "I wish there was." He explained that detectives had traced the anonymous complaint through multiple interviews, digital records, and surveillance footage. Every lead eventually pointed back to Olivia. According to the report, Ethan had supposedly been hiding stolen electronics inside his backpack before classes started. But security cameras showed something very different. Ethan had never been alone with the backpack before first period. More importantly, another camera captured someone approaching his locker nearly 20 minutes before he arrived at school. That person was Olivia. My sister had volunteered at the school library twice a week for years. She knew the building, the staff, and exactly when the hallways would be empty. Detectives also interviewed several employees. One staff member remembered Olivia insisting she had urgent information about my son just minutes before calling the police. When investigators compared her statement with the camera footage, nothing matched. Every version of her story changed. Every timeline collapsed. I drove straight to my parents' house, where Olivia was already sitting at the kitchen table. The moment she saw me, the confidence on her face disappeared. "What did the police tell you?" she asked. I looked directly into her eyes. "They know it was you." She froze. For a second, she didn't blink. Then she forced a nervous laugh. "Emily, don't be ridiculous. Why would I ever do something like that?" I reached into my purse and placed Ethan's official clearance letter on the table. The investigation proved he was innocent. Silence filled the room. My father slowly lowered his coffee cup. My mother looked back and forth between us, completely confused. Olivia swallowed hard. For the first time in 3 days, she looked frightened. And I realized something even worse than the false accusation. She wasn't scared because my son had been cleared. She was scared because her lies had finally run out. No one spoke for several seconds. My parents kept looking at Olivia, waiting for her to deny it again. Instead, she buried her face in her hands. "I never thought it would go this far," she whispered. I stared at her. "You watched my son get handcuffed in front of his entire school." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I only wanted to scare him. I didn't think they'd actually arrest him." Those words hit me harder than anything else she'd said. "You wanted to scare a 15-year-old boy?" I asked quietly. She nodded without looking up. "It was supposed to be temporary. I thought the school would question him and let him go." My father stood so quickly his chair scraped across the kitchen floor. "You lied to the police?" he asked, his voice shaking. Olivia tried to explain, blaming old family arguments, claiming she'd always felt I was the favorite child, that everyone believed Ethan could do no wrong while her own mistakes were never forgotten. None of it justified what she'd done. Not even close. My mother reached for my hand. "Emily, she's your sister." I gently pulled my hand away. She stopped acting like my sister the moment she decided my son's humiliation was worth settling an old grudge. Olivia looked at me desperately. "Please don't let this destroy the family. I'll apologize to Ethan. I'll tell everyone the truth." "You should have told the truth before the police arrived," I replied. For years, I'd defended Olivia whenever she argued with relatives or made reckless decisions. I always believed family deserved another chance. But watching Ethan spend 3 days believing his life had been ruined changed something inside me. I wasn't interested in revenge. I wasn't going to scream or threaten her. I simply refused to protect her from the consequences of choices she had made herself. As I walked toward the front door, Olivia called my name one last time. I didn't turn around. Some trust, once broken, cannot be repaired by an apology alone. Ethan returned to school the following Monday. He stood beside me outside the front entrance, his backpack resting quietly on one shoulder. "I don't know if I can do this," he admitted. I looked him in the eyes. "You already survived the hardest part. Now you get to walk in with the truth." Just before first period, the principal addressed students and staff over the school's announcement system. Without sharing private details, she confirmed that the investigation had been completed, Ethan had been fully cleared, and rumors surrounding him were false. She reminded everyone that making assumptions before facts are known can cause lasting harm. The whispers didn't disappear overnight. But something changed. Students who had avoided Ethan started apologizing. A few teachers quietly welcomed him back as if they wanted him to know he still belonged there. Healing was slow, but it had finally begun. Olivia also faced consequences for her actions. The investigation into the false report continued through the proper legal process, and the school permanently ended her volunteer role. More painful than any official decision, however, was the trust she had lost. Family gatherings became smaller. Some relatives chose distance. Others simply couldn't look at her the same way again. Months later, Ethan asked me a question I'll never forget. "Mom, why would family do something like that?" I took a long breath before answering. Because being related to someone doesn't always mean they'll make the right choices. But it also doesn't change who you are. He nodded quietly. That moment reminded me what truly mattered. My job wasn't to protect people's secrets. It was to protect my son. 3 days had stolen his peace, but they hadn't stolen his character. His name was cleared. His future remained his own. And as for me, I learned that forgiveness is a personal choice, but accountability is not. Sometimes the strongest thing a parent can do isn't seeking revenge. It's standing beside their child until the truth speaks louder than every lie.